So I'm excited to have you here. I'm Marshall Burtcher, and if you're new to me, I help codependents rediscover their happiness after narcissistic relationships, love addiction, and trauma. And if you're new to me, um, join the community. The community is your safe haven here on the internet where you can find support and guidance, tools, and safety, shelter from the storm and from the confusion and the crazy making that comes with narcissistic abuse and the cravings and the impulses that come with codependency. You can find the link above on Facebook, below on YouTube, and if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. I also need to share this out to the community, so I'm going to do that here real quick. Let me know, guys, how you're doing in the comments, because today we're going to do part 3 of what do I own in the toxic relationship. Because we play a role in our toxic relationships, and we need to understand what those are, because they give us a map, a direction as to what we can do to grow and to heal in our world. So I'm going to click the button here. Boom, it is now clicked. And we are live. So good morning. It's nice to see you guys. It's nice to be here with you. So today, what we're going to shoot at here is, what do I need to own in the toxic relationship? And specifically, this is part 3, so we're going to be talking about attempts to change things. Okay, so in codependency, we tend to ignore reality, and we try to live in a fantasy. We try to go after the ideal, the potential, the could be or should be element. We do this because this is a habit we cultivated in our life in order to survive the toxicity and the crazy of our previous relationships, especially if you're a child of narcissistic or unavailable parents. You created fantasy in order to cope with the loneliness, with the emptiness, with the shame, with the fear of not being loved for who you are by your own parents. It's a coping mechanism, and this fantasy requires denial. It requires you to deny what's going on. It requires you to ignore patterns of behavior, to ignore your pain, to ignore your boundaries, yourself. And if you're dealing with narcissistic abuse, specifically, you've also been made to feel crazy about your reality. You've been made to question your own sanity, your own experience, and by default, trust them. See, that's one of these big issues here with codependency, is we trust them as an authority when they are demonstrably liars, when they are demonstrably dishonest and abusive, and they have a full-on, through their behavior, disregard for your well-being. So we have to start making some choices here and get real honest with ourselves about what we're doing. So in this particular training today, we're going to talk about what we attempted to change, because codependence, this is part of the denial. If I live in the fantasy of potential, like they could be this, they could be that, I know who they really are, I know their true self, and if they would just do this or do that, they would be healed. Then the relationship would return to the euphoric state that we started out in. This is where we try to change things. And we do this in 2 ways. One, we try to change them. Try to force them to be something they're not. Now, in a normal, healthy relationship, confronting somebody in a relationship with a problem that you two are having or that you're having with them is a normal function. It's an expected thing. Conflict is how we build intimacy, understanding, and trust in relationships. Because if someone brings a problem to the relationship and the other person responds with warmth and understanding and willingness to at least understand, then yeah, you can build trust and you might be able to work it out, or at least come to an understanding that you have a difference, and maybe you both have to choose to live with it if there isn't a choice to change it. And then this also has context. I mean, if it's an abusive behavior, then it wouldn't be a healthy relationship, would it? But in healthy relationships, there are impasses that couples will have, and people will have in this, and that's normal. That happens. It's really not sometimes it's not about resolving the impasse. It's about living with it and moving on and focusing on the benefits the relationship brings to you guys, how you guys add to each other's well-being and your happiness, individually and collectively. But in codependency, we try this. We're like, hey, I've got a problem, and then they don't change, and then we start trying to make them change. We start trying to control things. We might try to control impact, consequences. Like, hey, but you're doing this towards other people. Like, you're dealing with an alcoholic, and he's shouting and screaming. You're like, no, he's just having a bad day as he's drinking his 12th beer for the day, that kind of thing. That would be enabling behavior. Controlling behavior can be inspecting their phones, their social media, because they've cheated on you in the past, or they've created a lot of distrust in it. It can be about shaping their points of view to agree with your points of view, so we can become very abrasive that way, maybe even judgmental there. And control can show up in trying to get them to be something they're not by trying to force them to get into therapy or read books or do things differently so that you feel safer, because they're becoming more aligned with the fantasy you have about who they are, rather than just acknowledging that they are who they are and then confronting the feelings and the reality that results from that. So that's one element. We try to change things. We try to change them, change their boundaries, change what they do, how they act, because we would like the relationship to improve, especially if we're dealing with toxic behaviors. It's an understandable thing to do. But the problem here is that we're actively denying their culpability in it, their accountability, their role in it. We can't change them. We can't solve the problem they have because we didn't create the problem they have. We have to confront this. We have to become honest with ourselves in this. This has to be owned. We have to confront the fantasy that we can change people. We don't change anybody. It is something we are naturally powerless over. People have the right to stay the way they are. And we have to live with that. Then we have to make choices based on that. And this is where the real rub is. This is where sobriety starts to collide with the denial and wake us up to what is reality. Because if the person we're with isn't adding to our well-being, we're in chronic distress, if we're being made to feel crazy, we're with the wrong person. It isn't about fixing the relationship, because that's not a relationship that's going to be fixed very easily, if at all. See, relationships change when both people have an active center of ownership inside themselves and within the relationship. Ownership and accountability are essential to the growth of a relationship. And if one partner is doing that and the other's not, you're not going to get down the road. It takes both. So what happens here is then we try to change ourselves. We try to make ourselves different enough for them. We start to question our own values, our own principles. We start to make ourselves wrong for what we want and what we don't want. We start to try to change our identity, our preferences, our likes, our dislikes, our boundaries, our capacity, because we want to keep that person in our lives because of the way we feel when they're treating us with respect, kind, and love. We feel this euphoria. We're chasing the feeling. We're actually not into them. This is something we have to confront. We're not usually in love with the person. We're in love with the idea of who they could be or who we want them to be. That's the fantasy component that drives a lot of codependency. So we have to look at how we've changed ourselves. What did I do to me, to myself, in order to keep this person in my world? What boundaries did I violate? What likes and dislikes did I compromise? How did I try to change me? Because that's an abuse towards ourselves. We are who we are, and we deserve to be loved for who we are. We don't need to change to be lovable. That's called earning love. That's transactional love. It's a false love. Real love is an embrace of the person as they are. That doesn't mean you have a committed relationship with them, depending on other factors, because relationship and commitment are boundaried. They have conditions. Love doesn't necessarily have to have that. I've written down some notes to keep track of things here. One thing that we often do as codependents is we try to change our feelings. We try to become tolerant of the abuse. We try to become tolerant of the emptiness, the neglect. We try to get rid of our needs and become more ultra independent because it stops the other person from being so aggressive or violent to us, either physically, verbally, emotionally, or otherwise. This is not necessary. Healthy relationships, healthy people will take you as you are. They value your needs and your wants. They value who you are and how you feel and your well-being. People who just want a relationship with you to get the benefits don't really care about those things. So you're being used in that respect. Sometimes we change our boundaries. We stop saying no to things that hurt us, and we try to become tolerant of it. We act in denial of what's really functionally going on with ourselves. So we deny what they are, but we also deny in us our own pain, the own reality that we're living with. So we've got to confront these things. We've got to be more attentive to our reality here. So in this third component of exploring what we're accountable for in the toxic relationship is, what am I attempting to change in me, or what did I attempt to change in me that hurt me, that added to my denial about what was going on, that violated my needs and my feelings, that made me last? And then what did I attempt to change in them? What was I denying about them? And how do I feel about that? This allows us to get very sober about what was going on, what we were denying, what we were hoping to get. This is sane making. It's hard work. It's not an easy thing to do. But this is when we know what we've been denying and we start to acknowledge it, this gives us a roadmap forward in healing. It shows us where we need to build skills and capacity and confidence in meeting our needs, expressing and valuing our feelings and valuing who we are, and maintaining our boundaries regardless of how we feel about that person. See, codependency values the other person's approval more than it values one's well-being. We need to reverse that. And that's done by choice, guys. There's not a magical system in the world that's going to make that happen for you. You have to choose to value you. This is a personal thing for you. It's like, I'm going to choose to value me despite the pain that may cause in my world. When I make myself the priority that way, my confidence goes up, my well-being goes up, my anxiety goes down. I'm more resolved in who I am and what I want and need in the world, and I get better relationships, friendships, better business opportunities. I'm happier because I'm willing to deal with the discomfort of choosing myself first and disappointing other people. I'm willing to be alone if that's what's necessary in my world to be happy at that point in time. I'm willing to value my well-being and my feelings, my needs and wants more than their approval. That's the key here, and it's a choice. It's a conscious choice. It's a constant choice. It's something you have to do over and over and over. It's not just a one-time event. It is a practice of commitment to self. This is how we move from I'm absorbed in you to I am anchored in me. I have my own identity, my own person. I am separate from you. I'm autonomous. I can access my own power because I choose to, despite how it feels. See, we've got to get out of the comfort zone of, hey, I just want to feel better. I know life is scary, especially for those of us that have dealt with neglect and abuse as children. We don't have a set point of safety, so stepping out and doing our way is a scary, scary thing. But if we get used to the discomfort of disappointing people, we create space in which to receive people who are already aligned with us that are healthy for us. And then the journey becomes about adapting to real healthy love. That's a trick. Because real healthy love isn't chaotic. It doesn't cause the massive euphoria. What it causes is peace and calm and nurture and play and creativity and growth. It's a beautiful, secure space to be. That's the magic of real love there. It's a kind and loving space that's got passion, it's got charisma, it's got character, it has purpose. It's very much alive, but it's not going to have the intensity that you'll have with euphoria because you're not dealing with a fear, love-based experience. So, guys, that's what you need to look at here as you examine what you're accountable for in your relationship. What are you attempting to change in them and in you in order to keep the relationship? What are you denying is going on that if you accepted would guide you out of the relationship? Because in healthy relationships, it's a chronic, I got to say yes to this because it keeps coming. This is healthy. This is good for me. This is positive. This is what I need. Toxic relationships, there's a lot more no's. It's like, God, this is a violation. That's a violation. This is a violation. You have to start saying no to things in a relationship, especially boundary violations. You're dealing with something that's toxic for your well-being. It's as simple as that. Okay? So I know this is a confronting process. Be gentle with yourself in it. There's no condemnation here. There's no reason to condemn yourself. You're learning just like everybody else is. Everybody else is learning. Some people are just down the road a little farther than you, and some people are ways back behind you. That's all good. Have compassion. Acknowledge your innocence in these things because you're innocent. It's not like you knew better. You actually had cogent experience that gave you a different reality. It's something that you're discovering. So have compassion with yourself there. Appreciate you guys. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. And if you're ready for real healthy relationships, the early bird registration for the relationship strategy is open. And currently the course is 13 weeks long. I'm going to teach you 3 specific things in the relationship strategy. One is I'm going to teach you what you want and how you want it. I call this the what, how, who method. We go in depth in defining what you want and how that shows up in your world. So you get really connected to how your wants and needs get fulfilled, so that you can identify it in other people. The second step is I teach you how to discover and then explore another individual to determine how they fit with you and how to navigate the uncertainty and complexity that comes with a budding relationship. And step 3 is I teach you how to maintain a relationship by building in a healthy relationship with communication, with conflict, with attachment, and with trust. I call that the CAT. That is how we do it. So the link is below on YouTube, above on Facebook. It's early bird registration, meaning the price is lower than it will be when we go live. When the full registration opens up, November 15th. Class starts December 6th. That is a Sunday. It'll be taught twice on those days, 11 a.m. my time, which is Mountain Standard Time at that point, and 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So there you go. Hit it up. I appreciate you guys. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. And I will see you tomorrow for our last video in this series of assessing our accountability in our toxic relationships. Okay? Have a great day. Be safe out there. Let me know in the comments how this was for you. And I'll talk with you soon.